I feel like some of the most challenging times at our company came from blindly following startup dogma or conventional wisdom. And that just didn't work for us because our customers don't want to buy that way. A vision I have for the company is like, I want us to just be like insanely customer focused, like insane. Our goal is to build the most accurate, the most comprehensive, and the easiest to use developer platform to build these speech and voice AI applications.
How do you deal with that responsibility, specifically as a founder, when you keep raising more capital?
I think we went from like 40 people to like 115 people in like under a year. It's like way too fast, and definitely wouldn't do that again.
It's interesting. Do you then generally think hiring for someone to figure it out as opposed to hiring for someone to solve?
I don't think you should ever hire someone to figure it out. There's this like image of what it's like to be a founder, and then there's like the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, like more so now, I think, you tell me what you think because you've consumed this content for a while, but I feel like there was like a, you know, people talking about like productivity porn or whatever. It's like, there's like this like, you know, image that I think is unhealthy of like what a founder or what an entrepreneur is like, because you try to aspire to something that's like not real, but then there's the reality. And once you realize like, oh, this is actually like what it is like, then you can, it's just more fun. Yeah. You know, like I've found myself asking myself this question of like, where are these expectations coming from? Yeah. Of like how this thing should be or whatever. And it's like, yeah, actually like, don't know. It's like, maybe this is just what it's like. and then that you can just like lean into that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, I think it's like Charlie Munger says, like, lean into your natural drift. Like, there are 1,000 ways to build a company. And I think you're right. Like, I obviously consume a lot of this content too. And I think there is like ambition more like, you have to do it this certain way. Yeah. And like that just might not work for every single type of company or type of founder. I call
this like the startup dogma.
Okay. Yeah.
And I actually just wrote a message to the company. It was like, beware of the dogma, because I feel like the worst times at our company came from like following the dogma.
Interesting.
And it's like, yeah, when you're first time founder and you don't know what you're doing, like you do. Are we going, by the way, or what?
Yeah. I think we're recording, right? Are we recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
We can. Yeah. I mean, I don't like doing the intros anyway because like it feels more natural.
We'll do it.
Way.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. So
I'll
we
just probably
just keep going.
Keep going. This is on a roll. I'll probably at one point bring it back to like the early stuff.
Yeah.
We can keep talking like because this is interesting.
Yeah. So I feel like I lost my train of thought, but like there's.
You said the memo.
Oh yeah. About like beware of the dogma, because our hardest parts. I feel like some of the most challenging times at our company came from just like blindly following like startup dogma or conventional wisdom. And yeah, it's like when you're a first time founder like me, or like a lot of founders, even if you're not a first time founder, but it's your first time like at a certain stage or whatever, you don't know what to do all the time. And so you follow the dogma and the conventional wisdom, but like that can just get you in so much trouble, because something I think about, and you just said it, but it's like a startup is not a franchise business. So if you're opening like a Denny's, I think Denny's is franchised, right? If you're opening a Denny's, like, yeah, it's like, here's your brand kit, here's your operating procedure, here's how to like make the pancake, you know, it's like the exact amount of time.
Don't deviate
per side, right? Don't deviate. Like this is the recipe for success. Yeah. And it probably works. That's why it's like all templatized. But I think with startups, it's like, what I've learned is like every market is different. Every customer is different. Every founder is different. Team is different. And so like, of course there's no template to follow, and you have to figure out this thing I think of now as like company market fit. So it's like, what's the best way now? What I think about is like, what's the best way to run the company that enables us to best serve our customers? Right. Like not just what's the best product to build, but like, how do we do roadmap planning? How do we meet internally? How do we like everything? What metrics to track? It should all be in service of, does this help us better serve our customers? If yes, then like awesome. If no, then like, why the fuck are we doing it? And and like, you know, it's probably because of some expectation on like startup dogma or whatever. Right. So yeah, I think it's like, it's something I think a lot about now.
I love that customer obsession. I mean, that's for any business. That's actually the only thing that matters.
Yeah, true. It is, you know, and it's funny, right? Because it's like you build this company and then it almost, there's like all this stuff, right? And there's this whole like universe, inside a company. But really, ultimately, the only thing that matters is like, like ultimately it's like, free cash flow, but like all that comes from like serving customers.
Yeah.
And so a lot of companies forget that, right? Yeah. And it's like you become inward looking, and it's about like, yourself versus, or like you as the company versus like, I think of Amazon, right? It's like the most customer obsessed company or whatever is their value and, or how they think about the company. And I think that really is how you can build like, an awesome company, especially in a really competitive market where that being really close to customers gives you instincts that help you move faster, make better decisions more often. And if you can have that across the whole company, then, it's like, it's really awesome.
Yeah. Have there been any moments, you mentioned like following the dogma, you briefly mentioned like, there's been a couple of times where we did that maybe too much, where it pulled us away from maybe being so customer obsessed. Can you talk about any of those? And
yeah, for sure. So, I mean, one is like, when we were starting to scale up our go-to-market, it's like, okay, what's conventional wisdom, right? It's like hire a bunch of salespeople, you build comp plans, you build territories, like that's what you do, right? That's how it's always been done. And that just didn't work for us because our customers don't want to buy that way. They want to just pay as they go. It's really hard to forecast their usage. It's really hard to forecast like what their tech stack's going to be like in such an emerging market. And so we found we were just introducing so much friction into our sales cycle by being like, okay, great. You want to use the product. We want you to use the product. Now let's go through this like, really shitty sales process and forecast your usage and add some growth, and you commit to that. And it's like, like I'm a startup and we're selling to startups, and like, I don't want to buy like that. I just want to use the thing. I want to implement it. I'm super happy, but like, I don't want to feel like, okay, I'm committing to something for 24 to 36 months, even if I'm going to actually use it.
Right.
I just want like, I'm not thinking about anything that long, And so, what we did was we actually pivoted away from that whole sales process and model. And it was really hard, because we had to like make a lot of changes to make that work. But we focused on like a pure consumption based pricing model and go to market motion. And so now you don't have to sign contracts, and you get great pricing, and you get all the rate limits you want, and you get amazing support. And like, we just want you to use the product and be happy, and we're going to support you well, and we're going to get everything else out of the way. Right. And so that was an example of like, when we were making that change, it was like, well, how do you do, like, what is ARR to you now? Right. Because like, if you don't have contracts, like, what is ARR?
Yeah.
And you have to focus on a run rate, and you have to show like it differently. And, it was interesting because like when I was thinking about this go-to-market change, I talked to a lot of people from similar businesses like Twilio and Segment, whatever. And I would talk to some sales leaders that work there, or executives. And I was like, well, did you run into a similar problem? Because there was this clear friction in our sales process. And I was like, did you run into a similar problem? And they were all like, yes. And I was like, well, why did you do contracts? And they're like, oh, well, it was easier to forecast revenue for our board that way. I was like, well, that's stupid. Like, that's not how your pricing and packaging should be designed.
I think the customer cares about what the board
wants.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, but I do think like, like, you have a board, and you have to show you do have to do all that stuff. You have to show forecasts, and it's, you are running a company, and people are investing a lot in it. But I think that you have to be, what I've learned is like, just like, what is best for the customer, and just make decisions that way.
Yeah.
And, it's like better things happen.
Yeah, 100%. How do you go about putting in this is a pretty big organizational change as well. Like, how do you go about actually, first of all, realizing it sounds like you just did a lot of discovery, like talking to similar companies, like, hey, you're running into this problem too. But then the second part, and tell me if I'm wrong on that part, but the second part, like implementing that change.
Yeah.
I feel like that sounds super painful, and maybe it's easier to just be like, you know what, let's just wait a couple of months and avoid the friction. Like, how did you?
Yeah, totally. It is super painful because like, sometimes when you're making these decisions, like you have to eliminate certain roles, or you have to change people's roles, and like that sucks. And that's the worst, some of the worst decisions you have to make. Cause like, you shouldn't have, with more foresight, you could have maybe avoided those decisions, or those situations. But it is hard. It's also like, sometimes you don't know just strategically, like what's on the other side, right? Because with a pricing model change like this, I mean, to get very specific, it's like,
please.
Well, okay, what will happen? Will churn go up? Because if a customer isn't bound by a contract, will churn go up? And it's like, well, stickiness of our product should not be from paperwork. It should be from like, it's a great product. It's deeply embedded in our customers' applications. They rely on it. It works super well. It's getting better all the time. Because like, if they're not happy with it at renewal, they're going to churn anyway. And so, it's like, where are you putting the problem? And so, yeah, I think it's very easy to rarely I have found decisions are black and white, and it's like, oh, okay, this is so clearly bad and wrong that, it's usually somewhere in the middle. And I think the hard part about being an entrepreneur is like, it's like every week there's not at the obviously like the same scale of like, oh, we're going to pivot our go-to-market motion, but like, yeah, you've got to make these decisions around, or just like tons of different decisions around like how to move the company forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You briefly mentioned just now, like it's very hard, especially with the type of company you're running and the cutting edge software and tech that you're building.
Yeah.
To plan out very far in advance. Like, how do you balance the want to like be very far thinking and be like, we've got this plan out for 3 years, etc., with the reality of like, hey, we need to make this new model. Like, we need to improve the product.
It's something I think about a lot. I mean, like there were times where we had no planning, and there were times where we had like very rigid planning, and I think both were bad. I think though that like, I think there's a natural tendency to like want to be like everything is super planned. I think especially because as entrepreneurs or people working at startups, like you are like maybe type A and you want everything super detailed, and I do, but I think we should take those things out on like the product, like take that energy out like on the product details or on like our customer journey, not like our internal processes,
right?
Like we should be super opinionated and detail oriented around like what the name of an API parameter is going to be, and does that make sense? And and same with our customer journey. I remember the first support guy we hired, and he's still at the company now, which is awesome. I was like, oh, like this is exactly how we need to reply, is like the tone and emotion, and like you should add an exclamation point there, because there was this like brand that we were that I wanted to come through even in our support chats. And so I think like you should maybe take the energy. This is what I think about more. Take the energy out there. I think that what I found is very helpful is like, we need to know what our North Stars are. So like who is our customer? That should be very, very clear. Everyone at the company should know who is our ideal customer. Who are we trying to serve? That should be super clear.
Right.
What market? What do they care about?
Yeah.
What type of product do they want? That should be super, super clear. The metrics that we're trying to drive, those should be super, super clear. So like, how much revenue are we going after this quarter? What are the key metrics in our operating plan that we really want to move the needle on? I think having fidelity around those is extremely helpful, because then everyone is like focused in the same direction. But the like, okay, and then from that, we need to know like every single, activity that this team is doing or the roadmap is going to have over the next 6 months is,
right.
I feel like too much, because in such a dynamic market, one, and two, in when you're innovating, I feel like you need to be free, and to innovate. And if you're like, maybe you have this idea that's really good and you should do it, but it's like, oh, well, I have all this stuff I committed to over the next 6 weeks, so I'll do it in 8 weeks. It's like, that's where I think planning becomes bad, because if you have an idea and it's a really good idea and it's based on instinct of like what will best serve a customer, like should just go do it. And everyone should be like understanding of, okay, that will be great for our customers, so we could do it. But I think there's these words that I think I see, I think startups use like thrash or churn or, spiraling on stuff. And I think like, I don't think those should be bad words. I think that like, I think that innovation and creativity is kind of crazy, and it like there's some kind of chaos that has to exist to like have ideas. Like I think even when you read, we both like have read a ton of biographies probably, right? Yep. So like some of the best ideas that scientists would have would be like out of the lab, like doing some extracurricular, because they could see something differently. And so I think there's some balance of like, how do you keep, what's like the right level of chaos that is like high functioning, and not like, whoa, this is bad. but on the flip side, if you try to rein in the chaos too much, then it's like, you just lose that spark and that innovation, and that's also bad. Yeah,
I want to dive deeper into that. That's super interesting. I think you mentioned biographies like Steve Jobs, Edwin Land. They talk about building at the intersection of liberal arts and technology. It's like sort of what you're describing to me. I think like that mix of rigidness, but also being able to think freely in this chaotic environment. How do you go about it? It sounds like you have to be rigid in like, hey, these are the customers, this is the vision, but flexible in how you get there. How do you sort of balance that in different functions? Is that different in customer success? Is that different to how you're flexible in sales or go to market? Like, are there sort of frameworks you've found with your team that have been very helpful in figuring that balance out?
It's a good question. The answer, I don't think so. Okay. I think that for me, what I've found is like, it sounds like a cliche, but like you need great people.
Yeah.
That's really important. And then everyone needs to be aligned on like who the customer is and what is the North Star from like a metrics perspective. Because I have found probably our most, if I'm reflecting on it, it's like maybe when we were most tense or it was most, confusing was when there wasn't a lot of clarity on like, who's the customer, what are we building for them? Right. And so what I've tried to spend a lot of my time on is really getting much more specific, both myself and to the company, on like, who are our customers? What are they trying to do? What are they looking for in a solution like what we're building? What are their, key purchasing criteria? How do they hear about new products? How do they want to buy new products? How do they implement new products? And let's design our customer journey around that.
Right.
Instead of saying, oh, okay, that's our customer. We're going to take them on this customer journey that worked at Atlassian. I'm just saying Atlassian as a random example, but like that worked at this random company.
Right.
Maybe it worked there, but maybe the buyer is slightly different, or maybe the market has shifted such that, the way they buy is slightly different. And so I found what has worked so much better is, let's take like customer facing teams or marketing. If you're a marketing team, it's like, having a lot of clarity on who the customer is, I think helps you there, because, well, how do they hear about new products? Okay, design your demand gen programs, working backwards from that.
Right.
How do they try and buy new products? Okay, design your, onboarding process and your sales process around that.
Yeah.
And have the, conviction to do it that way and design it working backwards from the customer. So
yeah,
I do think it comes from like being very clear on who the customer is. And, I also think like, not because I don't want to set people up for like the wrong expectations here. It's an iterative process, right? So we're always, as a startup, one thing now we're trying to figure out is like, how much time do we focus on like big enterprise customers versus continuing to focus on startups and high growth startup companies, that are like at the frontier of what we're building and really pulling the product forward. And so it's this iteration, and I think everyone has to kind of be open to like, hey, there's some stuff we're still figuring out, but this is like the North Star.
Yeah. I love it. You keep saying working backwards. It feels very Amazonian, right? Where it's like work backwards from the ideal customer experience, whether it's buying or hearing about the product. I think that's really interesting. And then I've been doing a lot of study on Spotify recently. They've got this culture of like debating. And I think it sounds maybe a little bit similar to what you have. It's like, hey, let's figure out deeply what actually the journey is, not what we think it should be, and then work backwards from that.
Yeah.
You mentioned also enterprise sales and startups pulling the product forward. That was going to be my next question. Like, how has that changed over time from a one-person company? How you sort of map that out for your customers, and how do you balance that now with, I'm guessing a huge scaling enterprise segment as well?
Yeah. Like, so to be clear, like, how do we think about focusing on like the startup segment versus enterprise still?
Yeah. Yep.
This is where I want to sort of go back to like beware of the dogma a little bit too, because there's a enterprise sales, right? Is like, well, you need an enterprise sales team, and it's like it is a very different sales motion, and you're selling to different organizations and bigger organizations, and there's more stakeholders. I think though, then it's like, okay, well, what's unique about our market, our customer, our product is like AI is still very confusing to a lot of enterprises. There's that MIT study everyone's talked about of like 95% of pilots have failed. AI pilots have failed. A lot of enterprises are slow to roll out AI, are still in the prototyping phase. And so like, I bring that up because I think that for startup companies, you do have to be kind of careful, because maybe you can unlock an innovation budget.
Yeah.
But if that project doesn't actually deploy and see ROI, well, then you're going to see that contract churn at maybe in a year or in 2 years when the contract is up. And I think for us, like what I've seen is that to build successful AI applications, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just like, oh, you call out to this Assembly or ChatGPT or whatever, and then that's it, right? You can get like a demo or a prototype that way, but if you were to look under the hood of like any of our customers' applications and their tech stack, it's super complex what they're doing. There's all these guardrails and workarounds they're doing to make it reliable. There's all this stuff they're doing to make it work at scale, and there's a lot of specialized knowledge that I think you still need to build really successful AI applications. And I think a lot of that is still within startup companies. And I get excited about that because like as a startup fan myself, like I think startups have a real shot, probably for the first time in a while, to like truly disrupt a ton of big enterprise companies, because I think big enterprises are moving really slowly. I don't think that they've figured out how to build with this stuff yet, how to get it out there. And what I see startups doing is shipping really amazing AI applications that work really well, and serving enterprises that have demand for that capability. I'll give you an example. Like, I'm going to make this up, so this isn't a real one, but let's say you're Coca-Cola and you have a big contact center operation, and you know that AI can help you in a million ways in your contact center operation. Like, that is true. And so you want to use that technology to save costs, provide a better customer experience. Maybe you go to your existing cloud contact center platform and you try their AI products, and like, they don't work that well, or they're, because maybe they're not using the latest tech, or they're not built in the best way. But then there's some startup company that is delivering on that capability really well. And so you sign the giant contract with them instead. I think that's why you're seeing some startup companies grow really fast right now.
Right.
Because there is truly demand for this stuff. It's like, who is able to deliver on the product that can capture that demand?
Yeah.
And right now, startups are like kicking ass. And I think it's awesome to work closely with them and to see how they're doing it. And I get excited because I think that startup companies really have this opportunity to truly disrupt a lot of big enterprise companies right now. And that's like a super exciting opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Are you seeing like in that process of those startups getting those contracts, how are you seeing adoption yourself at Assembly? And like, do you have any opinions on like, forward deployed engineers or embedding in, let's say, a Coca-Cola in that example, right? Like, do you have any opinions on what you think works or what should work for companies at different stages?
Specifically to AI? Yeah. So, I definitely so we have a pretty big success team, right? And so we have technical account managers, we have forward deployed engineers, we call them AI engineers. We have a support engineering team. It's way bigger than our sales team, actually, because customers do need a lot of help. And we have amazing documentation. We have AI like an AI chatbot over our documentation that can give you really, really good help, like to self-service. And we do see a lot of developers and companies self-service and get fully into production on their own. But there are a lot of like things that are still unique around applications, like how to cut down latency or how to maximize accuracy or just like the peripheral technology stack decisions to make. And so it is an area that we've invested a lot, is like how to best support both prospects and customers in what they're trying to build. And I'll give you a more like specific example. Real-time voice agents are a really big use case for us right now. And so these are AIs that can right now primarily handle phone calls. So if you call into a restaurant or you call into a customer support center, you can talk with an AI. And we have some customers that deliver like a cloud phone service essentially to small businesses, and something like 20-25% of calls to small businesses are just unanswered because the small business owner, maybe like one person at the store or at the garage, and they're servicing a customer or whatever. And that's a ton of missed opportunity and revenue. I mean, we've all probably experienced it, right? Like you have a leak, you call a plumber, they don't answer. And probably because they're just busy and it's a small operation. But with AI, you can now actually deliver on a pretty good customer experience over the phone. And that is such a rapidly emerging use case and tech stack that people need a lot of help. Like how do you tune the turn detection? How do you cut down on latency? Best practices to just make that whole experience work well. There's a huge community of developers and startups around that use case that are like sharing best practices and tips and tricks. And so that's an area where like you really need a lot of help. And so we are very hands-on with pretty much all of our customers that are trying to build these real-time voice agents right now, at least the ones that, will let us be hands-on. Right. Because there's a lot of just like subject matter expertise, I think, that you need to make these applications really work well in production still. And I think that will change over time. Like, I don't think it will be this hard forever. But it's just like, the technology will get better and easier. I think the subject matter expertise will become more mainstream. There'll be more resources online. It's kind of like, if you want to learn Python right now, it's like world's your oyster. When I was teaching myself Python, whenever it was like 10 years ago or something. No, it was like 15 years ago.
Longer.
It was like really hard to find a good resource to learn from. And, but once I found one, it like really helped me accelerate. So I think that the subject matter expertise for this stuff will get more, mainstream. The tech will get better. It will just become like easier.
Has your experience of like teaching yourself Python, because like you didn't study computer science or anything like that. So do you think correct me if I'm wrong, I think also a culture you guys have is publishing a lot of things and trying to be helpful for the community outside of your direct customers, trying to sort of help make it easier for people to adopt this technology. Do you think that's sort of built in from you being someone who's a self-learner, and or like, why do you think?
Probably. I mean, I do think probably. It's a really good point. I think it's maybe baked into our like instinct a little bit around how people are learning about how to build these things, and that we do want to be, I was always inspired by companies like Stripe and Twilio, and they were so good at this, right? Of like really educating developers, educating the market. And it's something that we are still inspired by and like aspire to do well at the company. And it probably comes back from those days. I mean, the first job I actually ever applied to was to be a developer evangelist at Twilio.
Oh, great.
Okay. I didn't get the job, but
their loss.
Yeah. I didn't get the job, but luckily I didn't, because the other job I got, that's where I met my wife, and now we have 2 kids. So it's like, it's funny how stuff works out that way.
Opportunity arrives after a loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that's always been something like I've just been kind of passionate about, and I think is also important for the type of company we're trying to build. Yeah,
I think it's awesome. I appreciate you doing it, because I think Stripe, I don't know when this was, but when they were raising money or whatever, they thought that I think the GDP of the internet, is the phrase they used, was $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Like now they process more than $1 trillion annually. I think this is a good moment in time to go back to your first job.
I'll give you the full. Do you want me to give you the full background?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had started a company in college, and that's when I, like, through that experience, taught myself how to program and got into entrepreneurship. And then that startup didn't go anywhere. We shut it down, and then I graduated college, and I just wanted to start another company, like keep learning how to program. And so I just opened up a bunch of credit cards and would just live off pasta and Diet Coke, and kept teaching myself more and more about programming. And I must have read 10 programming books, end to end. And I actually still have them. They're all earmarked, and
that's awesome,
and notes in them and stuff. It was a fun way to learn, because, you're just I would read a programming book about Python or JavaScript or machine learning. And then I would build some stuff with it, and then I would launch it. And it was when Product Hunt had just come out. So I would launch stuff on there. And then to make some money, I would do consulting, like contracting as a software developer and front end developer. And that was fun. But after, getting too far into credit card debt, I was I need to get a job. And I had a friend who encouraged me to apply to Twilio as a developer evangelist. And I did. I didn't get the job, but as I started to apply for that job, I was okay, I'm now excited about getting a job in San Francisco, because I was living in Washington, DC.
Yep.
And all my friends were looking at me just I'd stopped going out, and I would just be programming and stuff. And they're just what are you doing? You don't have a job. You're just what are you doing with your life? So I was I got to get out of DC. I got to go to San Francisco and just be there. And so I got excited about that. And so I applied to this job at Cisco. It was this innovation group that was working on it's innovation projects at Cisco. And I ended up getting that job, and that was awesome, because I met my wife there, which is
best job.
Yeah, best part of the job. And I also just got really into machine learning and neural networks there. So it was 2015. And so neural networks were just starting to get popular around that time. And it was very clear that they were going to get so much better, and over the next 10 years, gonna just dramatically change technology. So I really wanted to go in that direction, because it just felt where all the hard problems were going to be, and just where I would be challenged, and I wanted to spend my time, and so that was an awesome part about the job. And at that job too, I mean, this is where the idea for Assembly came from. We were looking into natural language interfaces. The Amazon Echo had just came out, and there were just really no developer platforms for really good speech to text or speech AI capabilities. The leading company was Nuance at the time. I got in touch with them, and they mailed me a CD-ROM. And
2015.
Yeah. And I didn't even have a CD-ROM drive, and I was just this can't be it.
Yeah.
And there was a company at the time that I was really inspired by. It was called Wit AI. and they ended up getting acquired by Facebook like very, very quickly. But it was like there was just this clear like, okay, you can build a better developer platform for this cutting edge ML AI workload that is happening and is going to happen. And the big tech companies were starting to launch products in this space, but it's just like we're so removed from customers and from where the market was heading that it's like didn't know what to build. And so I saw that as an opportunity to build what is now Assembly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned something like you instantly sort of like knew that machine learning and, that sort of wave of technology was coming. Why was that so obvious to you at that time?
Yeah. So like classical machine learning, it's just like, it just felt so brittle. Like you had to do all this feature engineering and, it was very like, it was very, I just had this impression like this like can't be it. Like this isn't like how, the really smart applications are going to be built, especially around natural language processing. Whereas with neural networks, you would just send the data in, they would work end to end. They were kind of figuring it out. It was so early in the field and so the thing that was happening is like these classical machine learning systems for speech recognition or computer vision or whatever, that for like a decade, people had like kind of feature engineered the crap out of and gotten to be really good. These neural network systems they weren't like blowing them out of the water, but they were getting really close to them, from a performance perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like out of the gate, right? So it was like, okay, the old thing has kind of reached its limit. This new thing is pretty much at parity with the old thing. And like the ceiling is nowhere in sight. Mm-hmm. So that was also part of it. Right. It's like, you could just tell there's so much headroom here.
Right.
The hardware is going to get better. The data is going to get better and more, larger. The algorithms are going to get smarter and better. And lucky for me, that turned out to be true. Yeah.
That turned out to be the case. Yeah, luckily. Yeah, but I mean, you still had you still applied to YC, even then you're like, I'm ready to quit my job. I think this is truly the future of where this technology is going. Like, what made you so sure that was the right moment for you personally as a founder to leave Cisco and start this company?
I think of the time I worked at Cisco as like I was just like understand. I was just like bored because I was in great shape. I'd go to CrossFit every day at like 5 and I would, have had so much time. But by now I have like no time and I'm in like horrible shape. But I just knew I wanted to work on something more challenging and I didn't, when I quit my job to start working on Assembly, it wasn't like, oh, I have this like huge vision. And I mean, I had like a vision for this type of product I wanted to build, right. But, yeah, I think with, sometimes I talk to people that want to be founders and they're like, oh, I'm trying to figure all this out still. And the timing isn't right. And, this and that. And like, I feel like you have to just like jump into it. Yeah. And I very much think about that with Y Combinator. So like there was a guy at Y Combinator, Daniel Gross, who luckily for me, it was like the only time he was at Y Combinator. And, it was like one batch that he was there basically. And that happened to be the batch that I applied. And he had experience with this tech because he was at Apple. He had sold his company there. And that's totally why, I got in because like he saw the opportunity. Whereas most people would not have seen the opportunity. And so I think like you just have to kind of put yourself in the way of luck is what everyone says. Right. And that was an example of that. But when I applied to Y Combinator, I had like no progress and I had just started dating my now wife. And so I was with her out of the country and got an email that YC wanted to interview me. So I was like, shit, I flew home to SF.
Yeah.
And the next day drove down to Mountain View for the interview. And like my GPS wasn't working. I was like, fuck, I'm going to be late. This is so bad. I I had to get there like with no GPS. Like I was on my way down.
Yeah.
And my GPS like stopped on my Google Maps, like stopped working, and I had to like get there. I just kind of figure out how to get there. And I'm so glad I gave myself enough time. But yeah, I got in, and I just remember being like so overwhelmed because there's all these companies, they had so much traction, they were further along, and I was like just starting.
Right.
And it's, you know, it was a super small market at the time. The tech was bad. It takes a while to build this stuff. So it's hard to make progress. And yeah, just like jumped right into it though.
Did you talk to the partners why they ended up letting you in? Because you also applied late. It was like 30 days late.
Yeah. It was 30 days after the deadline.
Yeah.
And that was also what made it more stressful. Like some people got into YC and they had like months to prepare. I got in and it was like, okay, it starts next week.
Like, I'm in Europe right now. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. I was like moving in with my girlfriend. It was just like so much stuff was happening at once. I talked to them. You know, I actually never asked them that question, like, why'd you let us in? I think that if I had to guess, I would think that Daniel, who was our partner, it had to do with him seeing. So YC had just that summer. Daniel had joined to create an AI batch.
Okay.
So there were some specialized batches for like biotech and stuff, and they had one for AI, and that was the first time. And actually, that was the only time. It was just like a experiment they did.
Right.
And you got extra compute credits, and you got, you know, they brought like Jeff Dean in and stuff to speak to the batch, and so I think it was like. It was that made it possible for us to get in.
Right time. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like got lucky, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you walk me through the first year being a solo founder who's just gone through YC? And you've talked about like, you know, these other people in the batch, they were better prepared. And even though you were building like a software product, it was more like hardware with how long the iteration cycles were back then. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It took like a month to train a model back then. And so, you know, you would get feedback from a customer using it, and then it's like, okay, I'll see you in a month when I have like a better update. And YC is 12 weeks. So you have like, you know, if you're training one model at a time, you have like 3 model training runs. And back then stuff was just slow to train, and it took a while. So it was really slow to iterate. And, you know, that's compared to like, if you're building a SaaS product, you can iterate super fast. You can build new features, test them. This was much slower. And so I do think that that made it hard, especially compared to other startups that were able to get progress faster. But that first year was just super confusing. I think that the market was just, if I look back now, it's like the market was just so small and so immature for what we were building, because the technology stack to build a ML or AI application around speech was like in its infancy. And so no one was really building these applications. And so the market was just really small. There was so much interest though, and so much demand. And that's what gave me a lot of conviction. Like, so many people wanted this, but then they would try it and it like wasn't good enough, or they couldn't execute on their idea. And so I always, in my mind, had this analogy to self-driving cars where it was like, okay, of course, as soon as a self-driving car works well, you're going to want to use it, and the market for it is there. It just hasn't crossed that bar. And it was the same with what we were building. So the first year was always this like, I remember there being this constant back and forth on like, well, do we just focus on the really small use cases where it is good enough for, and like just build like really, really, really narrow, something really narrow, or do we focus on the bigger thing and just like keep trying to make it better?
Right.
And yeah, it was like always back and forth on that. And I guess where we landed was like the latter, like just keep focusing on making the stuff better. And after realizing, okay, it's just gonna like take some more time, that's when, you know, I decided, all right, we just need to be like a small team of engineers and machine learning engineers just making this stuff better, until like the market matures. And so we had a small amount of funding, and we just worked on making the product better for the first couple of years.
Yeah. How in that, first couple of years do you not get swayed to go back into the smaller use cases potentially? Because I know you're talking to customers at that point in time.
Yeah.
You're giving them updates. You're iterating through the customer feedback as well. How do you make sure you don't sway too hard to an early customer when you're such a small company?
It's such a good question. At some point I'll probably reflect more deeply about like the whole journey.
Yeah.
I do think that like we could have been more specific on who our customers were back then, and that would have made it easier. So I do think it would have been fine to say, hey, we're first going to focus on this set of use cases where we know there's, the market is more mature. We feel like we can achieve the technology goals we want and build the product. And then we're going to go do this, and then we're going to go do this, and then we're going to go do this. I think that like, we probably could have been more specific. And I think that, maybe made progress faster, but then I'm not sure because the market was just so small, and it wasn't like we achieved on our own some breakthrough. There was this like whole tech stack of AI and ML primitives that developers got access to. There's also COVID, which created so much more speech data on the internet.
Right.
Podcasts got popular around then.
Yeah.
The shift to remote work.
Yep.
People were calling businesses a lot more because they didn't want to go into the store. So like so much more speech data. And it was this, you also had like 5G start getting more widely deployed. So you could stream a podcast. You could, have like voice calls over the internet reliably, Zoom calls and stuff. And it was all that came together that really, really started maturing the market pretty rapidly around 2020.
Right. And that goes back to what you were talking about with the self-driving cars. Like they were getting a little bit good enough where people like starting to use them way more for way more use cases.
Yeah.
Sort of expanded the TAM.
And it's very similar to self-driving cars because like there were some companies that focused on, hey, we're just going to build a self-driving shuttle for a university.
Right.
Right. It's like a very narrow use case.
Yep.
And then there were others, of course, like Waymo and Tesla and stuff that are like, no, we're going to go for like full level 5 self-driving. That's what we're going for because that's that's like the ambition they have. And I think both are probably like both can exist.
Right.
But yeah, it was very, very similar.
Yeah. It's a great analogy. Walk me through that 2020 when all of these factors are sort of coming together. You've been working on this for now a couple of years. What did that market shift feel like internally? Was there a clear new set of customers that were demanding the product or, more interest from people trying to apply to join or invest? Like walk me through that year.
Yeah, it was definitely customers. So like all of a sudden, we would see, we started getting more customers. I think there were always these like early adopters that stayed in touch with the company, and it's like every few months they would like come test. And, I still remember there was this one guy in Australia running this company, and he saw our Hacker News launch, and then we just stayed in touch for like literally years. And he was like, I really want to try to do this thing. The tech hasn't been good enough for it yet. Like, I'm just going to keep trying.
Yeah.
And he would just keep trying and keep trying. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, it was good enough. Right. And they started spending $10,000 a month with us.
Right.
And that kept happening then. And so we just kept seeing like, wow, we're actually like winning more customers. The usage is real. The revenue is real. We're growing pretty quickly. And it's just like has been accelerating really like ever since.
Yeah. Is it going faster as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so usage to our API is up 250% year over year, and that's growing like even faster.
Yeah.
And I think that will continue to grow because like the tech is getting better, and not just from assembly but everywhere. So it's like, okay, if you need to use a vector database to build your application, well, now there's amazing vector databases like Pinecone that you can use, and that technology stack exists. Like, think about if you had an idea and pre Pinecone, and like maybe our tech was good enough, but you needed that, right? So you have this whole ecosystem of AI and ML technology that has been maturing.
Yeah.
And now you can build these applications rapidly, and you don't need to do it first party. You can just use third party to do it, which is like how you just get so much speed to market.
Yeah.
So it's been accelerating, and then, you know, all the tech has just continued to get better and better.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know why, but this makes me think of, I think Peter Thiel often talks about like electricity and the breweries, and like how in Germany the breweries, you know, you're not going to focus on making electricity if you're trying to make better beer, but as soon as the electricity got better, the beer also gets better, like everything else downstream gets
I'm
butchering the story.
I'm not familiar with that
that
story, but
it's interesting. I should look back at it after this as well.
But it makes sense. Yeah, it's just like kind of like lifts all boats, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah, exactly. How do you think about assembly in this area where, you know, everything's sort of getting better? How do you think of yourself as part of the stack? Because I can imagine, you know, outside looking in, it might be interesting to say, oh, we want to go more on another part of the stack, or own, you know, go deeper into the customer creation, like
totally. So the way I think about our goal is like, our goal is to build the most accurate, the most comprehensive, and the easiest to use developer platform to build these speech and voice AI applications. And so I think right now we're just solving like a very small slice of that goal of like helping developers build these applications. And you know, when I talk to our customers, they're doing so much, they still have to do so much work like before and after to build their application, and like before and after assembly to build their application. And they don't want to do that. Like they want us to be solving that for them. And so when I think about our potential, I think about like, wow, there's so much product surface area we can very clearly expand into, that our customers want us to expand into, that is a huge growth opportunity for us, is a huge way to continue to increase our differentiation and our competitive advantage. And I've always thought there will be a really big company, you know, doing this. It's just a question of, is it Assembly or another startup that like executes better? And I think that is probably ultimately like sometimes a thinking exercise I'll do is like, okay, if we were to fail, what will I have wished I did? Right. So back to your question around like, how do you make hard decisions and stuff? It's like, okay, if we have failed, like, well, I wish that I did this, or we tried that, right? It's like, okay, then like we should really try that, because like I won't have like regretted the opposite, right? And I really do think that there's an opportunity to build like a really big company in this space. It's just like, is it going to be us or someone else? And I think from the outside in, it's like, oh, well, isn't this, you know, like a small part of the stack or whatever, and there's a lot of competition, and like there's a lot of competition, but this is a huge part of the stack, and there's this huge growing ecosystem of applications, and what they want is like this growing list of accuracy improvements or capabilities, and like we're just getting started. And there's a huge opportunity, and I think that a startup company like Assembly is really uniquely positioned to do it, because it requires working really closely with customers.
Yeah, I love that you said something, a product surface area. I love that as a framing.
Oh, yeah.
How do you go about that over time though? Like, can you give some examples over how that's changed over the last couple of years?
Totally, yeah. So I think, you know, it's kind of been like gone like wide to narrow to wide.
Okay.
Where I think in the beginning we were too wide, like we had too much product surface area.
Right.
And then we narrowed it, and we had a very narrow product surface area, and we put all our IQ points and all our energy to making that amazing. And we did, and that helped us grow a lot. But now we have to expand more because our customers want us to, and, you know, we have a lot of ambition for what we want to do for the company. And it's interesting. Like, I think that, you know, a lesson from that I've learned is like, you should definitely pick something specific to like start, but like, you know, be rapid to expand out from that as your customers want to do more and more with you. I do think you have to be like really amazing at one thing and start there, And then that gives you the right to kind of expand with your customers.
Right. What was that for you guys, and what was that expansion process like?
Yeah, so we really focused on the speech to text in the beginning. And then we built a lot of speech AI and understanding capabilities around the speech to text. So content moderation of speech, speaker diarization and identification, sentiment analysis and emotion detection, like a huge product surface area capabilities. And it was a lot to maintain because there's like essentially every single one of those products, there's like a list of feature requests and improvements, and, you know, it's cutting edge stuff. So you're like, it's not like, oh, you ship it and it's done. It's like, well, you shipped it and it's like 80% accurate. Right. And so like customers are going to want it to get better and better over time because 80% is fine for now. But like, you know, you always want the stuff to be better, faster, cheaper. And then so what we did was maybe like 2 years ago said, okay, we're really like moving too many things forward too slowly. And we're building kind of this like average product that like, just like not happy about. And so let's really focus on like the core of what our customers are asking for, which is the speech to text capability. Let's get really, really good there. Let's really like focus on like improving the model there and making that amazing. And yeah, we saw a ton of growth after that because like ultimately customers, one of their key purchasing criteria is the accuracy of those models. Cause it's like, that's not accurate. Everything they're trying to do, becomes problematic.
Right.
We also focused on the serving infrastructure to make this stuff super cheap. So we could support customers with huge workloads that needed it to run at lower cost.
Yeah.
And now that we've done that so well, now our customers are like, well, I want to do more with you. I don't want to have to procure 3 other vendors. I just want you guys to be able to solve everything I need to go build this application or this workflow. And now we're pushing into those things.
Yeah. Can you say what some of those things are? Or
yeah, totally. So, there's this, like one of the core use cases for us is, apps that are building around conversational data. So podcast, meeting, sales interaction, and you really need the ability to know who said what and then identify speakers accurately too. So like, okay, this is Bob, this is Joe, whatever. Especially across conversations, right? Because if you think about like, there's a customer we have, they're in New York City, they're called Ciro. They do AI sales coaching for sales reps that are in person and in the field. And, like you're maybe having multiple conversations back to back and you need to keep track of like who was who across those, and maybe someone comes back in from an earlier conversation. And so that's this whole field of like speaker diarization and speaker identification. And that's an area that we're focusing really heavily. Another is around these real-time voice agents. We really want to be able to offer like a full speech-to-speech solution for our customers. And we're launching that later this year that we're super excited about. So those are 2 that are coming really quickly.
Yeah.
Others are like, we focused really hard on making our cloud API really performant at scale and fast and everything and low cost. But now we're getting into self-hosted options. So we have our first customers on our self-hosted versions of our API. So if you want to run it in your own data center on your own hardware for security or latency reasons, you can. And that's a pretty big expansion of product surface area that we're pushing into as well. So those are just a couple examples, but like, I think we're innovating a lot and we're learning a lot. And we're kind of letting our customers like pull us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you take me behind the scenes for one of those, whether it's the diarization or, one of the other features you mentioned? Can you take me back to how, on the company side, like have there been any things you've learned or changed over time in how you organize the teams internally to be able to, build the cloud feature, for example? Like how does that work from, okay, we need to build this to execution?
That's a great question. So we've recently made a change that has I think been really helpful, which is like organizing our teams into specific product teams.
Okay.
And so we used to kind of be like everyone working on everything, and I think that worked for a while, but then it started to feel like there's a lot of functional teams, but no like end-to-end kind of product team thinking about everything. And so our CTO, Alex, he's our chief product technology officer. When he joined, he actually like, this is one of the things he wanted to do, which has, I think, been awesome. And I've learned a lot from it. Is like, we now have these kind of end-to-end product teams around the different use cases that we want to support and the products we have to build for them. Mm-hmm. And they have revenue targets and they have like, cost targets, and it's so clarifying because there's continuity for those teams. They know, again, who their customer is. Mm-hmm. They can build that instinct on like what to prioritize. And then you can move so much faster as a result. So that's been really effective. And I think that's been like a recent change we've made that really I've seen like help us.
Yeah. Fascinating. What was that conversation like? And then I'm going to throw this in as well. So I'm going to overload you with two questions. How does the interconnectedness work between the teams as a company?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, it's interesting. I feel like the organizational design, I mean, we grew really quickly. So, right, like I think we went from like 40 people to like 115 people in like under a year. It's like way too fast. Definitely would not recommend that, and definitely wouldn't do that again. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we didn't really build the organization in like initially in a thoughtful way. And so it was kind of like how things evolved organically, and then we iterated on it into the current setup, which now I think is working for us. And then on the interconnectedness, it's a good question. I think that maybe the answer is like it comes down to culture. Mm-hmm. So we're really heavy on Slack, like getting like pretty extreme about it too, like pretty close to being like no documents, just like everything should be like in Slack. And instead of making a document, make a Slack channel, and like, because then now with Slack AI, you can like search over everything and it's amazing. And I think that helps us because it's like all public. So maybe here's a better answer. Like I think we also had evolved to at some point in time be like pretty siloed across different teams. And as a remote company, this is just hard.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to unpack for like why that maybe happened. If you look back, I think like some of this actually, it's crazy how many layers there are to stuff, right? So it's like, I talked about our go-to-market motion a while earlier.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the right go-to-market motion. And so then what happens? Well, then it's like harder to hit your quota. And then what happens? Like, well, then there's a lot of pressure on the product and engineering teams to like ship more stuff that can help you hit your quota. And so like that then can create these dynamics where like you are at your company where like people that are like nervous to kind of build in public because like there's a lot of, weird pressure or whatever. Whereas like if everyone is like aligned and in the same boat and you know what I mean? Like everyone's incentives are aligned and you're building the company that way. It's like everyone wants the same thing, right? So now like our product teams have revenue targets and they are also wanting to close customers because like they have revenue targets they're charging at. And they also want to make it, lower cost to run because there's costs to serve targets they have. So it's like a lesson, I have from that is like, yeah, everyone just has to be incentivized. And maybe this somewhat goes back to the dogma stuff too. It's like, well, if I'm wanting something and I think it's really important that the company achieves something and it's, there's like a metric or whatever, it's like, well, it's like, we shouldn't have like fake KPIs that like, okay, we achieve it, but like, how's the company doing? You know what I mean? Like it should all be connected.
Yeah.
it's always funny if there's like one KPI, it's like, yeah, it's like 200% to plan or whatever, but it's like the company's not doing well on something. Well, then it's like, what's the point? Everything should be connected.
Right.
And so I think that now that is the case, it creates this environment where everything's open, everything's public. We operate super flat, and there's just like a ton of cross pollination that happens. But I'm sure at some point that will, break. and I think that when it does, like, we'll just fix it.
Yeah. So your company's going to keep changing as it scales.
Yeah. I think like everything will break. Yeah, it's funny. Like now it's like I'm at the point where like nothing phases me because it's like, yeah, like everything will break at some point. With the best intentions, stuff will just break, right? And it's okay. It's just like part of the process, and you just like fix it and change it. And these startup companies, I don't think people appreciate how much like I don't think like other founders, I don't think when I say people, I don't think as a founder you appreciate how much this will be the case. But like when you're doubling, tripling revenue and your customers, and like it's like a lot of pressure on a company. It's like a lot more customers to respond to and a lot more feature requests, and when you're raising a lot of capital, it's a lot of pressure that comes onto the company. So like stuff's always changing, and you have to just constantly be evolving.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's two things that come to mind. Take the one that you find more interesting. How do you deal with that responsibility, specifically as a founder, when you keep raising more capital? And then also going back to, setting those KPIs, how do you make sure, or do you have a process internally for setting those goals and making sure that...
Yeah, totally.
Take that one first, maybe.
Yeah. So his name is Matt.
That's the process.
Yeah. So Matt and Nick. To your first question, like I feel that responsibility deeply. I think like as a founder, like you are wedded to your company in a way that I think only other founders understand, right? Like it's like your company, you're gonna be here like forever, right? And so it's that, and I do feel deep responsibility for everyone at the company. I feel deep responsibility to our investors. I feel that like all the time. Because like, yeah, if stuff doesn't go well, like I can't just be like, all right, see you later. Like I'm
going to a different company.
Yeah. Like exactly. Like I'm here. And so it's why I do think it's why it's part of why this like founder mode dynamic is popular, because that is how founders feel. And it's why you want to be deeply involved in your company, because you want to, because you feel this responsibility, and you want your company to be amazing. And you also have this, instinct about like where you should spend your time that you have to just like, listen to. And so I feel that responsibility deeply. And I also really, really want to like realize this vision for the company. And I always felt like talking about vision, but like, oh, the CEO is like the visionary, right? And I was like, that sounds so lame. But now I think about it differently, where it's like the vision I have is not like, here's this like,
here's the future.
Yeah. It's like, there's this product that I really, really, here's how I explain it now. There's this product and this company that I really want to exist, and that like I'm trying to create, and every day I'm trying to get there. And like, that's really what I'm after every day. So it's like, I really want to make this product real. I really want to, make this company that I have in my mind. That's what I'm going after. And that's also what drives me every day, is like, it's super fun to see that, to have moments where you see that happening.
Yeah. The realization.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, I can answer your question, like how we set targets and stuff. I think that this is an area where we are we've gotten incredibly detailed at the company. So we have like so many metrics in Looker. We're so metrics driven. We have amazing metrics around our whole funnel, whole growth funnel, revenue per product, logo churn per product, retention per product. Like we spent a long time actually getting to a point where it's like super instrumented. Mm-hmm. And now it's very easy to say, oh, okay, like this metric is what we should go and improve, you know? Or so like there's a metric that we were trying to improve now, which is like logo retention in the first like 3 months. Mm-hmm. And
on any product, I'm just
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting as I say this, it's like you see the metrics and then you have your insight from the field from like working with customers. It's like, yeah, it actually is really hard to get into production. Talk about the forward deployed engineers and stuff, right? It's like there's a lot of areas that you can fall into traps. There's a lot of like help you need to get your stuff deployed, rate limits you maybe need to adjust or whatever. And so, yeah, it makes sense why that metric actually, there's opportunity to make that higher. Okay, well, we know what to do, right? It's like, let's try to get technical help in front of new customers that are signing up much faster. Mm-hmm. Let's improve our API documentation in areas that people are having trouble. We're seeing a big trend of people using code gen tools to implement our API. And so we did a huge blitz to go evaluate how well those are working with our API, and they weren't. So we are now making them a lot better.
Yeah.
And that's such an awesome way to run the company, is like just being super instrumented around the metrics that we need to focus on.
Yeah. I think you mentioned something key though. It's like, yes, the metric is super important, but it doesn't paint the whole picture. Like you actually have to go and talk to the customers and actually understand what part of the funnel is. How do you marry the setting of those goals and improving targets whilst also understanding, okay, what does that actually translate to?
Yeah, totally. It's a really good question. And it's like something I talk about to all the leaders at the company now, and myself too, is like it is the expectation I have is that we're all experts. Mm-hmm. And that means experts in our customers, in our product, and in our market. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at those metrics without the expertise, you're going to just rely on the dogma, right? Or you're going to rely on some past experience or something. But if you look at those metrics with the subject matter expertise and the expertise you have of your customer, your product, your market, mm-hmm. it's like, maybe it's like, hey, yeah, no shit, that metric's bad. That part of our product sucks. I tried it yesterday and it's like terrible, So like, I'm not surprised. This makes sense. Yeah. I'm glad our metrics actually work. There's a smoke test. Yeah. Versus if you haven't ever tried that part of the product, it's like, well, like, how do you know, right? Mm. And so I think what I really try to focus on is like, yeah, everyone at the company being a subject matter expert. And so we're constantly trying to make it easier for people to like dog food our product so they can get that intuition. Yeah. We're constantly trying to make it, like put more customer feedback into Slack so everyone can see it. We're constantly, bringing customer stories into our team. So like every all hands and every leadership meeting we have, we always do like customer deep dives, Sorry. And so it's like good and bad. And I think that some people, maybe think like, okay, we should, we shouldn't be in the weeds this much or whatever. It's like, no, like, I think like you have to understand your product and your customer deeply and the market, especially in one that's changing so much. And it's like, how are you possibly going to lead if you're not deeply, and lead maybe is like the what I mean by that is like, how are you going to like decide what to do if you don't have that instinct? Yeah. You need that instinct. And I think that's critical.
Yeah. I love what you said about the customer stuff. Like that reminds me, like Stripe, I think brings customers onto their board meatings.
I read about that. I was inspired by that. Yeah. Right? Something like that. And it's like, I think so that my talk about like a vision I have for the company is like, I want us to just be like insanely customer focused, like insane. I want people to see what we do and just be like, holy shit. And I'll give you an example. To dog food our product too.
Yeah.
When we're meeting with customers, we'll bring an AI note taker, and that AI note taker will extract product feedback from that customer conversation, and we'll post it automatically in Slack. Publicly. Everyone can see it. And so like all the people working on the product that customer just talked about see that feedback. And that happens, a dozen times a day in Slack. And it's like, that is so powerful, because if you think about it, most conversations you have with customers are either like in support tickets or on a meeting.
Right.
And if you can and they're usually like siloed away from the people working on the product. And so you have to go talk to a product manager who maybe is like met with a few customers, and then they talk to like an account manager, and then, and you have this like diluted message, whereas it's like this fire hose of feedback.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, yeah, you have an instinct for what to build. And we have hundreds of customers in Slack with us.
That's awesome.
And we encourage our engineers just like join those channels and like ask them questions and debug with them.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful to like get constructive feedback on the thing you're building from a customer, right? Not from like your manager or whatever.
Yeah.
Because then it's like true. It's like that customer, it's like,
it's not diluted. Like
exactly.
Yeah. I love that. What are some of those tools? Because you mentioned, like, I think as a company scales, I think Jeff Bezos talked about this, like communication is inherently just going to increase. Like to your point, I've just had a meeting with a customer. This is my takeaway, but you're sort of maximizing the context sharing so that you need less communication because we all have a shared understanding. I love the idea of having the note taker and automatically pulling that in Slack. Can you talk about some other like tools or methods or strategies that have been really effective?
Yeah. So, another one is, there's a tool called Pylon.
Okay.
Heard about them? They're growing a lot right now, but it's this like new Zendesk type platform. Okay. The founders probably hate me for this. Well, just for how I'm going to explain the product. But this new Zendesk type platform for modern B2B companies like Assembly, where like we're working with our customers in Slack, and there's a ton of AI tooling in there. So like I was going to meet with a customer last week, and I just went in to Pylon, and I was like, I could see an AI summary of the account and their usage and the recent feedback they had about some product thing, and it's like all AI generated and all there, and it's like, that's amazing. I can just self-service that. Anyone can self-service that.
Yeah. I have to get you a commission for anyone that.
Right. Yeah, totally. I'll tell them, hey, yeah, totally. No, it's a good tool. So like we're happy to talk about it. And then I honestly have to say, like, Slack AI has been super helpful for us. Okay. So, what you can do now is you can go into the Slack search bar and you can just be like, what's the top feedback we've gotten around this product over the last 2 weeks or whatever. And then because we dump all this information into Slack from support tickets and whatever, it's all there for Slack AI to sift through. And then you get an amazing output.
Right.
It also makes it possible for you to skip documents, because it is true. Like if there's nothing written down and it's all in Slack, it's really hard to get information. You have to have meetings, and then that people are in meetings and not building stuff and working on stuff. But now if it's like, oh, I'm so confused about this product, why are we doing this? You can go to Slack AI, ask it. It will find the conversations and give you the answer and then cite the conversation. So it's like, wow, like you actually don't need documentation anymore. You can just have AI have a fire hose of raw data, unstructured data, and synthesize it for you as a team member. And like, that is so powerful. Less meetings, less time getting caught up to speed on stuff. Like, this is how I think startups can move super fast, is taking advantage of this stuff. But I think there's so much, I think, cultural within tech, maybe there's so much like cultural And maybe not just in tech. I think as people, it's like hard to change habits, right? And so there is definitely a new tech stack though of like how to work emerging. And I think we all have to just like really lean into it hard.
Yeah. Is there like, you mentioned like the Slack bot itself kind of helps filter. Is there a downside to so much fire hosing, or is it like the tools are good enough?
Yeah. Totally. I think there's pros and cons to everything.
Right.
Is what I've learned. And it's like, so it's like, okay, what you will see is like, yes, there's Slack's crazy. It's like, there's these super long threads, and it's like, I don't know if that's dysfunction, you know, because it's like, I actually think that's better than let's write a document. It's like a couple of days to write a document, like get some collaboration, get some comments. Maybe some people don't even see the document. It's like, maybe it's hard to find the document later. Versus it's happening in Slack, 80 people can see it, anyone can jump in, and it's much faster. So I think like, it's like, okay, then it's like, what are you optimizing for? So if we are doing that, then we have to give people more time to be on Slack and out of meetings.
Yeah.
So we've actually canceled like a ton of meetings across the company. Like I don't do any one-on-ones anymore.
Really?
I don't avoid them, but I don't have recurring scheduled one-on-ones.
Right.
Of course, if someone's new to the company or just comes back from like leave or something, yes, like, you know, you have to have like frequent touch points and stuff.
So it's not structured consistently for everyone.
No. Because what I found is like you then kind of accumulate stuff to talk about and then talk about it, you know, later, and it's slower, or you just like, now what I think about is like, I want my day to be filled with whatever I think will move the company forward.
Yeah.
And that is different all the time.
Yeah.
And so maybe some weeks I need to be meeting more with these people, and I don't need to actually talk to this person at all for like a month, because like, it's just like I shouldn't spend my time on that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I have more time to be in Slack with our team and commenting on threads around product decisions and stuff.
I love that. I think,
and maybe I'll be totally wrong, but
I think it's a valid approach. And I like what you mentioned, like everything has trade-offs. So like there's probably trade-offs to doing it this way, but there are also benefits, and it depends on the company culture that you want to build. What do you lean into?
Yeah.
I think Daniel Ek does this, CEO of Spotify, where, you know, he's like, if you have a cluttered calendar, like you can never work on the most important thing in the moment. And he's like, to all of his reports, like, just call me anytime when you're in the moment. Like, if that's the most important thing, like, let's work on that.
Totally.
I think it's a very valid strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I've said is like, you know, I just want to talk to anyone as much as needed, but like, then that gives me the ability to focus on truly what's the priority. Because there's nothing worse than waking up and being like, I really want to and need to work on X, but I have all these meetings that like, I don't want to be in today. It's like, because then it's like, why? Right? Yeah. Like, why? And it was interesting. I found myself having this realization. It was like, okay, if I were to ever start another company, here's what I would do different. But then I started thinking, well, why wait to start another company? Why not just do those things now? I have a company and I'll do it now. And it was like this, like, you know, aha moment. I was like, oh, I actually like can do that stuff now.
Yeah.
And it's so much more fun.
Is one of those things removing the one-on-ones and the...
Yeah, stuff like that. Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, why not just do it now?
Yeah.
You did mention that, like, when someone new joins, and I think we've touched on this sort of throughout the conversation about culture and the importance of being a subject matter expert. I joined Assembly. I know little to nothing about the industry. What are things you've learned that are helpful in getting people up to speed on being an expert?
You probably wouldn't have gotten the job. I'm just kidding. No, but I say that because like we actually look for like I'm just being sarcastic.
No, it's good.
We look for like a thing we look for now in interviews is like passion for the space, right? So I think it's important. I think that there was a time where we really only looked for like functional expertise. Right.
Like, can you program this thing? Can you...
Right. And I don't expect you to come in and be an expert in our space, but you should be passionate about the space. And that should that should give you some foundation of knowledge, so I'm not explaining everything to you from scratch. Because if that's the case, it's like, it's like we've made a mistake. And so what I really look for is like, when I interview people, it's like, what got you excited about our product? What got you excited about our space or the opportunity? And I want to, if it's like, like sometimes if it's like just the functional components of it, like an AI company on this, it's like, we do that anywhere, right? But like, why here? And so that's really what I look for in hiring. And I think that there was a time when we hired a lot of people where I wasn't involved in every hire. And, it's like, oh, you have great leaders, like trust them, right? But we made hiring's never 100% success. And so now, I do a final round interview with everyone, and yeah, like I have to basically approve every single hire that we make at the company. And I will do that probably as long as I possibly can, because I think it's really important because there's a chance I'm working with that person for longer than the person who hired that person, or there's a chance that I'm maybe like at some point managing that person, if there's some like temporary reason why I need to. And so, I think that like what we now do that's a lot better is like in the beginning, we have like a big kind of debate on the role. What are we looking for? Why? And we that's been super helpful. I can't tell you, like most of those meetings, we end up changing something about the role. Yeah.
Just because there's different expectations, or you realize, okay, maybe the thing I thought was important isn't, or...
Yeah, we just like uncover some like, right? It's like, we just give ourselves a second to think about, let's think this through, let's think longer. Because also the worst thing to do to someone is you bring them in and then you realize, actually, we needed this instead. And that sucks, right? And I think we as a company should be better than that and should try to be better than that. And so it's like, let's really think this through. Let's really get aligned. Do we need both of these roles at once? Do we need just this one? So we hire this one, see what changes, and then hire again. What is the non-negotiable? Let's actually really think about time zone. We're a remote company, but like, okay, do you really want to work with someone on a 9-hour time difference than you every day? Do you think that's going to be sustainable? Is that going to make you happy? Okay, no, I think actually I want someone closer. Okay, that's fine. Let's narrow the search. So like up front and then at the end being like trying to be very, very intentional. And I think that's helped us a lot versus like, at one point we were hiring a bunch of people, it was like just really, we were way too, we were not thoughtful enough, as company.
Yeah. I really like the idea of being very heavy and like, where is the leverage in that process? And it's like front loading a lot of the work, or it's like, what is the role? What does it actually look like?
Yeah. And I have to give credit to, someone on our team, her name's Kenzie. Like she noticed that, okay, we were getting later into interviews and would have a shift in expectations of the role. And so it was her idea to say, hey, I think up front we need to have a meeting. We get like everyone on a call.
Right.
And we just like really make sure we're all on the same page on what we think the company needs and what we want. And it's been awesome.
Yeah. Much higher hit rate.
Yeah, totally. You're much more specific and can be much more focused on your sourcing and just be more efficient with your time too. Cause like, it's like, oh, well, if you're trying to figure it out as you go, then you also waste a lot of time in interviews with people you don't end up hiring. So it's just not a good use of time versus if you are extremely specific on what you're looking for, then you can actually get a job filled like without having to interview a ton of people.
Right. Because you know exactly what the profile is.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. That makes a lot of sense. For the conversations that you have the final say on, you've front loaded all of this effort. You've got the right type of constraints and profile you want to hire, what most often happens when you're like, we still shouldn't hire this person? Or are there even patterns, or is it?
Yeah, totally. It's a good question. You know, it actually rarely happens now that we front load, so we used to not front load. And then either me or someone else towards the end would be like, oh, I really, like, we have different expectations or something. So now we front load a lot of that. And it actually hasn't happened since then.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long's a
couple months?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. That's great. I feel like there would be pressure though, because you are growing so quickly. Like, how do you manage that dynamic of, okay, we do need to really sit down and take time to think about the role, but I've also got like this huge pain and I need this help right now?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think there's a lot of, like, we think like this, and a lot of, it's actually, you know, I've thought like this, but I actually think it's bad logic to say we have a lot of pain. The solution is hiring someone new, because it's like, think about it. Best case scenario, you find someone in 4 weeks. They can start 2 to 4 weeks later. They take 4 to 8 weeks to ramp up. So it's like, you're actually not making progress on the thing that is giving you anxiety for like 3 to 4 months. So what's actually way better, I've found, is like, find someone on your existing team that wants to work on that thing, put them on that, and backfill that role. Where you can actually spend more time.
Interesting.
Then you feel less pressure to fill the role too. Because it's like, well, it's not like if it's like, oh, this thing is so important and we just can't do this until someone new joins the company. It's like, what? Like, I just feel like that's not the way to do it. It's like rarely is that case the way to do it, right? I mean, of course there's exceptions, but like, it's like, you just, then you do it, right? Or everyone chips in and does it while you're searching, so that you don't feel like, I just need someone in here. You know, I don't care. I just need someone in here.
Just anyone.
Yeah, those are the vibes that can result in, like, I think, bad hires.
Yeah, and then only bad hires lead to more bad hires, and it's like a downward spiral.
Yeah, and even if it's not, like, we've also made mistakes where it's like, you hire someone who's great, but it's like there's not a good fit. And maybe the role actually wasn't as big as you thought, or maybe what you needed is slightly different because you hired in a rush or something. And that is probably the hardest, right? Because it's like, you have someone that's great, but it's like just not, it's not the right fit. And those are totally my fault, our fault as a company. And like, you know, I really challenge myself and us to like not to really minimize the amount of times we're in those positions, because like, I think that is avoidable,
right?
If you're very thoughtful upfront about what you need. And it's you know, it's like we've made those mistakes, which is like why we've gotten here. So it's not to say we like haven't done it,
right?
But I think it's like those are I don't like when we're in that position.
Yeah, 100%, because it's
not fair to the other person,
right? Totally. Yeah, and if it is avoidable, like, that's probably the part that hurts the most, was like, this didn't need to happen.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Is there any, I haven't heard anyone say that before, it's like, if you do have a pain point, like, people obviously talk about don't hire out of like a really bad necessity, but more so like strategically and thoughtfully, because then otherwise you do run into those problems. Can you talk about any examples that come to mind where it's like, there was a pain point in customer support or engineering and we backfilled it this way?
Yeah, totally. So
like the process of backfilling, because like, I feel like that could be quite complex.
Yeah. So we you know, this real-time voice agent use case for us is a really big growing use case. We needed another forward deployed engineer on that. And instead of going out and hiring for that, we had this amazing guy on our support team who was like really passionate about the space. And we're like, yeah, you go do this.
Yeah.
And we can like take a hit on support for a little bit and just kind of balance a little bit while we go backfill, you know, for that role. So did
his role completely shift, like 100% of the time, like just instantly to
totally a completely new role.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Similar, right? But yeah, completely new role. And it's awesome. I think that's like, it's also awesome to like give people growth opportunities at the company when you do that.
Yeah.
And I love that we do that now.
Yeah. Structurally, yeah. I mean, it's, if you're doing something, you're like, I actually rather do that, and there's an opportunity. It's like if your company's limiting you, and you know there's a need, it's like that's probably quite a shitty feeling.
Yeah, totally. You know, and other situations are like, it's like maybe there's not one person, but like can a couple people just like all kind of balance it and do it, so you're at least making some progress.
Right.
So like I think of events. Events are something that we really want to do more as a company.
Mm-hmm.
And we all just kind of like shared the load of that while we went and hired someone that could do it full time.
Yeah.
So I've done events. I've put one on myself.
So what does that look like? Like how you run an event, you needed help. Like how involved? What does the structure look like to?
So like, you know, I just like so there was a happy hour we wanted to do at a conference.
Okay.
And I just put it on. You know, I just made the event page, put it out on LinkedIn, emailed a bunch of people. I didn't pour the drinks. And yeah, I mean, it was like a 20-person happy hour, right? So I didn't organize like 1,000-person event or whatever, but but doing that gave me way more conviction. Yeah, we need to hire someone full time to do this because these have ROI. Clearly, we're closing customers after these. We're deepening relationships with partners after these. So like we will not. This is not like I think we should do this new thing, so let's hire someone to go figure it out. Yeah. Right. I feel like we should figure it out, and then if it's something that we want to do, let's hire someone, and then, you know, also so much easier for them to ramp up too. If it's like, hey, like here's what we've been doing, now you can go focus on this full time. Yeah. So it is a shift in thinking, and it's you know, it's not like a template, right? Like, of course, sometimes if you need more salespeople or whatever, it's like you can't like take an engineer and make that a salesperson. Like you have to just hire more salespeople. But I think it's probably more so when it's a new role, I think. Right. So if it's like a +1, +2, something existing, that makes sense. Right. But if it's like, oh, there's this net new activity or net new thing we want to do.
Like events.
Yeah, exactly. New product, service, or whatever.
Yep.
It's very hard, I have found, to hire someone new, them come in, even if just from like a timing perspective too.
Yeah. It's interesting. Do you then generally think hiring for someone to figure it out as opposed to hiring for someone to solve?
I don't think you should ever hire someone to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's like I don't maybe I'll change my mind, but as it currently stands, I don't think you should ever hire someone to like figure it out. I think you should have an opinion. It could be fuzzy, but you should have validated that. Well, I think it's like two things. Like either, yeah, you should really validate what you want to do, and it can be very fuzzy. I'm not saying like you should have it all organized and then hire someone, but like
then you might be too slow.
You need to have conviction that this is an area you want to invest.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't hire someone before you have that conviction. Mm-hmm. Or if you are, then it's just part of the conversation, right? Like, hey, I don't know if this thing is going to be a long-term initiative or investment for us. Right. Do you still want the job? You know, there's a chance it doesn't work out. This isn't fruitful for us. Mm-hmm. And in a year, like, you know, it's not something we're going to continue to invest in. Right. But then it's like, why not start with a contractor maybe? Right. Where that's part of the expectations kind of built in, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of ways I think you can like make progress on something, get it a little bit further before you're like, okay, yeah, we really need to invest full time in someone to do this. Cause it's like, you know, then yeah, it's like, I think some of my mistakes and our mistakes as a company have been like doing the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. And then it just makes it harder. Yeah, 100%. How does that change over time as the company is scaled? Because I imagine if it's, you know, all the way back to the first year, it's just you. Yeah. I can imagine it'd be very easy to be like, I'm going to hire everyone and everyone can figure it out. You know? How's that evolved over time? I think it's probably somewhat tied to your operating surface area as a company, right? So it's like our operating surface area as a company in the early days was super small. That's just you. Yeah, exactly. And so it's probably tied to your operating surface area. And
can you explain a little bit for what that might mean?
Sure. Like how much stuff is going on
right.
at your company?
Right.
How much stuff are you trying to like support, hold up, do?
Mm-hmm.
There's a limit to that, budget, focus, at any point in time.
Right.
And I think that I also probably just have more conviction now about the way to do it that best serves us today. And so it's easier to do it this way right now. And maybe that will, change at some point. I think but at least for right now, that's what makes the most sense. And for, it's like for other founders I talk to, I tell them like, yeah, I mean, you got to just figure out what works for you. Like just synthesize all this stuff and then figure out what works for you.
Yeah. Don't just step into the dogma.
Yeah. Like, yeah, exactly. Just figure out what works for you. What helps your company best serve your customers.
You've raised by now over 100 million, 108 million plus.
130.
Well, okay. You raised over 130 million. That comes with a lot of pressures, a lot of lessons, I'm thinking as well. Like, what would you tell other founders are important things to know when fundraising or, just in general around fundraising?
Maybe I'll talk about the earlier parts of fundraising because I think that like, seed rounds, Series A's are probably where I maybe have more advice to give. I think there's a couple of things. I think like at that, like if you're just starting something or, you're starting to get some traction, I think it's just really important to find people that are investors that believe in like you and your market and the opportunity. And it sounds maybe obvious, but I think that's really, really important. And not everyone is going to. And so it's why you have to really, like search for that kind of, right? Because like I do love our investors because like I feel like they all really believe in the space and the opportunity and the vision for the company and what we're trying to build. And so I just know like we're all in it, right? And so it's like it's so helpful because of that. And so I think that it's really like just you got to find people that like be very clear on like what you're trying to do and like and find people that believe in you and believe in your company and what you're trying to build and create. I think that's really important, especially for like early stage rounds. And then I do think that investors just like even Y Combinator, right? Like they're not. It's like it's an opportunity for you to leverage. It doesn't like just deliver things to your door.
Right.
I've yet to find anything that is like an easy button building a company. And so it's like, yeah, they have amazing network of potential customers. Well, like, you've got to go tap into those, right? Like you've got to ask for intros and you've got to go, then close the deal, right? Cause like you can get a conversation, through your network, but like with a potential customer, but you still have to go make an amazing product and have a good customer journey that will close that customer. And so I think there's somewhat of like this validation that founders maybe seek from raising investment. But what I really, try to stay focused on and think other founders need to stay focused on is like the validation should come from the customers, because if you're making customers happy and they're paying you an increasing amount of dollars, like that's like nothing will happen if does not happen. You know what I mean? And so like
no matter how much money you're raising.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like how many stories have we heard about companies that like based on like pedigree or whatever, like raise a ton of money and then like don't actually figure out the product or whatever and don't do well. So like you've really got to like focus on the customer's amazing product, and the funding is a resource. Like I actually don't think I have ever, and maybe this is just me because there's something wrong with me, but like I've actually never been excited like raising money, you know, like I've never, like I remember getting into YC and just being panicked. I remember like raising our Series A and just being stressed out. You know, and when I compare that to like when we have our highest revenue day ever, it's like that feeling is so amazing. It's like euphoric, right? It's like, okay, like this week we had our highest revenue week ever. It's like, that is like when I feel the best. Cause it's like, yeah, you are making something that people are liking and they're paying you for it in increasing amounts. Yeah, exactly. And the capital is great, but like comes with pressure and expectations, and you've got to put it to work. And, it's like a means, and it's a necessary, you know, part of the process of trying to build like a big company, but it's not like the end goal.
Right.
And I think it's talked about too much as like the end goal, like, oh, we raised this round. It's like, well,
how does it help your customers? Like,
yeah, exactly. And like, you know, you've got to keep growing and keep making an awesome product.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's definitely a key thing in this whole conversation is it always revolves back to the customer.
Yeah, I do think
hiring
so.
or investing.
Yeah.
I love that. Are there any other frameworks in general about building businesses or running your company that you've discovered over the last, you know, several years of running Assembly that you think are applicable for other founders, or if anyone listening to this would be like, you know, it'd be criminal for you not to share? Like, is there anything that you feel passionately about?
I think that founders, need to just like, trust their instincts, right? Because if you're a founder, like you are, like I'm never not thinking about my company,
right?
Ever. You know what I mean? Like literally, like never.
Go to sleep, wake up.
Exactly. I dream about like I'm constantly, my gears are turning about the company,
right? The
products, like stuff we have to do, like it's constant. You know, I may not be on my computer, but I'm constantly thinking about the company, and I'm constantly talking to other founders, and I read a lot. And so sometimes you just have this instinct on like, oh, we need to focus here, we need to do this. And I think that, like it is hard to listen to those instincts because maybe they're against the conventional wisdom or the dogma or whatever. But what's I think as I've grown, as I've run, you know, a company longer and just gotten more experience, it's become easier for me to trust those instincts. But I do think that, like the advice or whatever I'd give to other founders is like, like those instincts, even if you can't explain them, like they're like, you should listen to them and explore them and pursue them. And maybe you're wrong sometimes. But that's okay. 'Cause like the times that you are right it's like going to be like very impactful for the company. And to listen to those. Yeah.
Have there been any, we don't have to go into any examples if there's nothing that straight away comes to mind, but like anything where the dogma said to do A and you went.
Well, I really think, you know, a big example that has happened historically enough for me to be able to reflect on it is our go-to-market shift away from selling essentially contracts that are recurring and just saying it's all usage-based. We're just going to, you know, keep customers happy and not make them sign up for commitments. And it was like obvious, but I kept maybe thinking like, oh, but maybe, I don't know, like not having confidence in just like doing that until it was like, all right, we gotta do this. Because that was against, you know, all sorts of conventional wisdom.
Yeah. Other people say how other companies are doing it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The one last, anything else? Otherwise I got one question I want to selfishly ask you.
Yeah.
You mentioned you read a lot, and I listened. I think you posted on LinkedIn or somewhere some of the books you've read. What have been some of the books you've read recently?
Yeah,
that've been really impactful.
So I love sci-fi, and I love nonfiction. Books about like building companies or entrepreneurship. So right now, I'm reading this sci-fi book. Actually, I actually don't even, I forget what it's called, but it's the guy who wrote the authors who wrote the Expanse novels.
Okay.
They just put out this new series. I think it's like 2 books. And I just got it on the Kindle and I just jumped right into it, which is why I don't even remember what the name is. But I was on a long plane ride yesterday and I read like 80% of the book on the plane. It's so good. So James Corey, I think is the author name or whatever, but his new books, check those out. And from the nonfiction side, some of the ones that stand out, like the Wright brothers book.
Yeah.
I thought that was so good. And I love that book. The NVIDIA Way was really good. I just read the NVIDIA Way. And then let me think of what other ones recently.
Doesn't have to be recent. It could just be.
Yeah. The like highlights for me, like I love Walter Isaacson. So like, I think he's just such a good writer. Like all of his biographies, Jobs, Musk, Benjamin Franklin, like they're all so good. So like all of those I would read. Cause I find that so many books, they paint this like dramatized picture of the character, in these nonfiction books that is just obviously, like dramatized, you know, whereas like Isaacson, I feel like he does such a good job, just like balancing that where it's like still this amazing narrative and story, but you see truly the good and the bad of profiles, you know?
It's very observatory. It's not like, oh, this is a narrative.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. There's not a narrative that is like very clear. Like, okay, they're trying to make this person out to be like superhuman.
Right. Like the Social Network or like a movie might be. Or
Exactly. So all the Jobs books, the NVIDIA Way recently was really good. I love the Wright brothers book.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to remember more once we wrap up, but those and then be pissed at myself for
no, it's all good.
But those are the ones that come to mind.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, this has been super fun.
Yeah, thanks. Cool.